Welcome to Conflict and War Studies, everyone. The 80th United Nations General Assembly has just wrapped up. World leaders gathered at a time of wars, humanitarian crisis, and new challenges like climate change and artificial intelligence. There were lots of things in their agenda. Today, I'm joined by retired Brigadier General Ufuk Uras. Thank you, General, for joining me.
Thank you. Now we are going to talk on a different topic.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start simple. I want to understand, why does the UN still matter today?
The United Nations was established just after the Second World War in 1945. It is the main organization responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security in the world. It has some principal organs like General Assembly, Security Council, Secretariat, and a few others. The General Assembly is also an important organization because every member nation is represented in this platform. The General Assembly decisions are not legally binding the member nations. Generally, the decisions are recommendation to member nations, but it provides the opportunity for every member nation, from the small countries to the global powers, to express their concerns and their views about both the security matters and also on other issues.
So, about this year, the 80th year of this General Assembly, we heard about a lot of issues. Which issue do you think dominated this year's agenda?
The Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel aggression to Palestinians dominated the agenda of the General Assembly.
I believe after especially Donald Trump's critics, there were a lot of critics to the United Nations itself too. What do you think about these critics?
First of all, the United Nations has lost its effectiveness because it was not adapted to the new environment. Since the World War, the world order has changed. There are now new challenges that humanity are facing. And the most important problem is about its structures, and in particular, the structure of the Security Council. There are 5 permanent members, and those members have the veto right so that they can block any decision. This was the case a week before. The ceasefire proposal about Israel and Palestine conflict was blocked by the United States in the Security Council. Some countries now are against this. There is a reform process, but it doesn't proceed. Many countries believe that they are not well represented in the United Nations. For example, a country like India, Japan, Brazil, they believe that they should also be a member of the Security Council because of their large population.
I see. So, do you think there will be any kind of effective solution for this misorganization?
I don't think so, because the Western countries like US, UK, and France, maybe also Russia, are against the change of the permanent members because they have a power over the decisions of the United Nations and they don't want to lose this power.
It makes total sense, unfortunately. I want to continue our conversation with the Ukraine and its relation with Donald Trump. On Ukraine, President Trump has toughened his stance, but it's really hard for me to understand why now.
President Trump is influenced by people very quickly. This is what the Americans say. He maybe thinks either to compel Russia by his new approach, or he's bluffing. The main criticism against Donald Trump by some Americans is that he doesn't have a peace strategy and plan for Russia. He only is talking. His words are rhetoric, but he doesn't have a comprehensive peace plan. So this is the issue, and he is now maybe under the influence of the latest developments that took part in Europe. The airspace violations of Russia led to his policy change, and that also shows that he doesn't have a peace strategy for Ukraine and Russia war.
But there are some tariffs and energy sanctions, especially they're going to be increased in the upcoming years, I believe. Do you think tariffs and energy sanctions really change the game or
I
not?
don't think so. Yes, it may affect Russia. Russia have faced many sanctions by the European countries and the United States since the beginning of the war, but Russia survived and sustained its economy, is also advancing on the ground. That doesn't change Russia's position. Russia is very much determined on its objectives. It seems that Russia has much more consistent policy and strategy in Ukraine. And their terms are very clear indeed. Russia says that Ukraine should be neutral. The Crimea and Donbas region should be recognized as Russian territory by the international community. Thirdly, no any foreign troops should be located in Ukraine as peacekeepers if a peace deal is agreed.
I see. To understand if this is going to be escalated or not, I'd like to ask you and remind you that Trump even suggested shooting down Russian aircraft, especially after the occurrences that you mentioned. How serious is that?
It is serious. It is not only about what Trump has said in the United Nations. NATO Military Committee gathered, they discussed the issue. This may be the case, but a war between NATO and Russia, as I said in our previous programs, doesn't make sense. There is no need for a war. Why Europeans want the war to be prolonged in Ukraine? They do not express their views transparently. We haven't heard anything from the leaders of Europe about their terms. They only say that Russia should withdraw all its forces from Ukraine.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And in the United Nations General Assembly, Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, has stated that they don't accept any withdrawal. Their terms are clear. But Europeans insistently say the same thing, and they do not offer any peace plan. So this is not understandable.
So, ideally, what should be their action against Russia?
I think they should start talking with Russia. The Russian position is clear, but if Europeans want to talk to Russia, I think they can make some progress. At least they can try to influence Russia. Going to a war doesn't seem logical. It will be, as we said many times, devastating for both sides.
Yeah. So, General, let's turn to Gaza, the second major issue that has been emphasized. So, what future do you see for the region? I'd like to start with this generic question.
The Netanyahu administration is problematic because they want to expand Israel. They want a greater Israel. They want to reach to the borders of the so-called promised land. It's not just about Hamas. Yes, Hamas caused the threat. The total fighters of Hamas was about 25,000. And Netanyahu has said a couple of months ago that 95% of Hamas fighters were killed. But at the same time, he killed 200,000 or 250,000 civilians. How could this be explained? Isn't this a genocidal act?
Yeah, I think he terrorizes a nation. This is the only explanation.
Yes, according to international law of armed conflict and humanitarian law, the actions committed by Israel leadership, Israel cabinet, Israel armed forces are all crimes.
It's a really sad situation. But Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech was defiant. What message was he sending?
So yes, he's not only defiant, he's also arrogant. He thinks that he is so powerful that he could dictate his position to all countries. But indeed, Netanyahu is weakening his country and is weakening his people. Today, more than 150 countries recognized Palestine as a state. There are countries in Europe imposing sanctions against Israel. The Israeli people cannot travel freely to everywhere. They face criticism, they face reaction. The Israeli authorities cannot travel. Israel is only supported by the United States. Only a few countries support Israel.
Yeah.
It is going to face very serious isolation.
I see.
And the reaction is growing against Israel everywhere, not only in the Middle East, but everywhere.
Even before Netanyahu's speech, there were lots of people leaving the room and protesting Israel, basically, and the genocide happening in Gaza.
In addition to that, Trump met with regional leaders. After the meeting, the leaders stated some positive remarks about the meeting. Today, there was a 21 article piece deal was on the newspapers. I don't know if it's true or not, but there are some important articles on this. The first one is that the Hamas will be totally eliminated and will not be in Gaza. There will be a transition administration. The administration will be comprised of Gazans. They will be guided by some international experts maybe from Europe, United States, and maybe also from the Middle East countries. The third one is the deployment of a stability force, a military force into Gaza to ensure that Gaza is safe. The Israeli forces will withdraw according to this plan. I don't know what Netanyahu said about this plan. I think that he will reject this plan. He would not accept the deployment of foreign troops. He wants to invade Gaza and annex Gaza to Israel. He also wants to expand Israel's borders to other areas in the future. We will wait and see his reaction.
Yeah. So, General, let's continue our conversation with China. So, China's premier gave one of the lengthiest and the most effective speeches. So, what was the main theme?
The main theme that the world is no longer a unipolar world, but multipolar.
What does that mean in practice?
During the Cold War, we know that the world was bipolar world. The world was divided between Soviet Union and United States. When the Cold War ended, it was unipolar world under the hegemony of the United States and its allies. But this has changed. New powers emerged in different parts of the world, and the West is not the dominating power, is not a hegemonic power anymore. But the West is resisting to this. The West does not accept this change and wants to reverse this situation. And to reverse it, they try to create conflicts. But it's a fact. I mean, the world is now a multipolar.
Yeah.
The new emerging powers have new capabilities, production, military capabilities, technological advances, and they challenge the Western designed world order. This is the message given by the Chinese premier.
Is Beijing positioning itself as the alternative leader of global order?
Maybe not the alternative leader, but is the partner of the New World Order, because I listened to this speech, and in his speech, the premier stated many times the cooperation. The BRICS, for example, is one of the important organizations. The Shanghai organization is also strengthening. So he stressed upon the partnerships, cooperation, and win-win policies. And China is doing this successfully, especially in Africa. In Africa, we know the West colonized all countries and still exploiting the resources of Africa, but China contributes to the development, carries out joint projects, creates job opportunities for the people of Africa, and is very much welcomed by the African countries.
Yeah. I want to ask also another cooperation to you. There is a proposal for a World AI Cooperation Organization. Do you think this is serious or symbolic?
I don't know much information about this. This is proposed by the Chinese premier in the General Assembly meeting. It is not an existing organization, but is a proposal. And the premier stated the misuse of artificial intelligence and concerns about its use for military purposes. You know, the biggest concern is about the military autonomous systems.
Yeah.
If AI is used as a weapon and without human intervention, this may lead to incredible consequences. Some people claim that the autonomous drone swarms, for example, will be much more dangerous than nuclear weapons. The countries might not have shown interest to this issue in this meeting, but I believe that in the coming years, the artificial intelligence issue will be one of the top agenda items of the United Nations.
I totally agree. Especially the war in Ukraine proved this to the world. So, General, taking Gaza, Ukraine, UN reform, and China's ambitions together, do you see a turning point in world politics? You said that there's a shift, but this General Assembly somehow showed or proved something to us.
The General Assembly meeting is a kind of symbolic because there is no decision to be complied with member nations, but the issues brought in the discussions are of high concern for the humanity. For this, it is important. It signals and indicates that now we are in a transformation, not only politics, but also there are serious changes in economies, in social systems, in technologies. So it has to be closely followed in the coming years. More importantly, the UN reform process has to proceed and it should allow nations to be more equally represented.
Indeed, because right now the system basically doesn't work and we see lots of casualties happening just because of this. I believe this year's General Assembly was important to show us how the Western democracies are working too. Donald Trump's speech represented something. That speech was coming from the USA, the symbol of the democracy and freedom of speech. But they didn't actually manage to give a good speech, let's say. They were not being inclusive, but just being exclusive.
Maybe I can also say a few words about this.
Yeah.
The US is politically polarized now. The democracies are in decline also in the West, both in Europe and the United States. The people are not happy with this and they criticize their governments. For example, Sweden and Finland joined NATO without going to a referendum. I remember in the past, Norway went to referendum a couple of times for EU membership, and the people of Norway rejected this. Norway did not become an EU member. There are some setbacks in the democracies of the West and the values, the humanitarian values. This is also an indication of the power shift in the world.
General, thank you for sharing your insights. So, again, from Gaza to Ukraine, from UN reforms to China's ambitions, it's clear the world is in flux, and the UN remains a stage where all these tensions play out. We'll see in the coming months whether this assembly leads to real action or remains mostly symbolic. Thank you again for joining us, and thanks to our audience for being with us on Conflict and War Studies. We'll see you next time.